So here we are at the Melbourne Art Fair in 2014, up with art collector and Peter Cooley, who's exhibiting downstairs with Martin Brown. So Peter, we may as well start off with a little introduction about where you came from as an artist, and your early beginnings as an artist as well, from a very early age, making ceramics. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about your very early classes with, what was her name?
Oh, Mrs. Helen Moffat from Tweed Heads. Yeah, no, when I started making ceramics when I was 12, and some of my mother's mates were going to this Saturday afternoon class, and I put my hand up and said I wanted to go, and that's where I started. And I've never really stopped, on and off, but there's been big painting periods in the interim of making ceramics too.
Absolutely. So from Mrs. Moffat's school, after high school, you then made your way up to Brisbane, and enrolled in art school there, and majored in drawing and painting, was it?
Yeah, yes, it was. I didn't do ceramics then because I felt as though I was sort of finished with it by then. I wanted to develop painting and drawing skills a lot more. And being a kid from the country and not exposed to a lot, but I've been lucky that I'd actually been exposed to ceramics. So I went for what was the best available thing. Plus, I really enjoyed it too.
And so, pretty early on in your painting practice, you were drawn to sort of iconic pop icons and any icons of Australian and international pop culture that you found relevant. You seem to automatically be drawn to and make subjects in your work. What were some of the other influences that affected the way that you composed your paintings and the styles that you went for?
Well, when I was younger, unfortunately when I went to art school in Brisbane, Queensland Art Gallery was closed, and it was only the 5th floor of the Mount Isa Mines building.
Wow.
So that was fairly detrimental for a student.
Not the Quag Goma that we have today.
No. And that was, so we were really, we just...
A little bit starved, it would appear, of good material.
Yes. And so therefore you sort of resourced off each other. But I had been exposed to things. I mentioned once to you that I had been exposed to quite a lot of Papua New Guinea art because a lot of there's quite good examples of that in galleries in Surfers Paradise.
Yeah, okay.
And there was a good batik shop in Surfers Paradise with fantastic textiles, things like that. Yeah.
So interesting influences that you had from the colonial fringe of Australia around PNG, but it was also from that part of the world that some of the German expressionists, was it Nolde or Emil Kirchner, or one of them had sort of been in Papua, German. Papua back in...
Nolde. It was
Nolde?
Yeah, Nolde had been there.
And had been there, and he brought it back with him to sort of Dresden, and this is before he, identified with what became known as the Expressionist movement in Germany.
Yes. Yeah, no, he had been there, and I think Pechstein might have been to the South Pacific too. And yeah, it's interesting, and they all came from Dresden. Not Noel, he didn't come from Dresden, but he lived there for a while. And they actually used New Guinea. Some of their paintings had artefacts of that from New Guinea in their pictures. So that was kind of, it's interesting.
And then so, stylistically, from your early paintings from the 80s, there are definitely some noticeable influences of those German expressionists in the way you find figuration, and not only that, but also these direct references to to those masks and things like that.
Yeah.
Did you go and see those in Germany at some point, some of those paintings?
No, I did. Oh, I saw some,
Yeah.
yes. But I spent most of my time in France when I was
Oh, of
young and
course.
travelled.
Yeah.
And there's actually not a lot of German expressionism in France
No.
for obvious reasons.
There's a bit more in New York, I dare say.
Yeah. But the French do have some. But when I was in France, I just looked at everything.
Sure.
I went to the Louvre all the time. So.
And were you still painting when you were in France?
Yeah. I was painting all the time there. Yeah. But I had done. Before I left, I'd worked with a potter, Chris Sanders, was through a Philip Morris Arts grant, which came out of the National Gallery, and I decorated on porcelain pieces.
Wow. So who I think you've told me in the past that it was former director of the National Gallery who was one of the first. Was it Mollison who encouraged you to start painting or glazing ceramics?
Oh, he saw my work and suggested that it would be appropriate to work on ceramics. And it was interesting that he understood what I was doing, but he actually didn't know my history of working with ceramics when I was younger. So it's interesting that his sensitivity to artists, that
So it was an opportunity for you to revisit something almost from your childhood, but with an entirely new vision, because even those early ceramics of yours, they change so dramatically in subject from sort of pop icons to a different kind of iconography in the Australian landscape originally, and then it's fauna. So how did you make that transition?
Well, I still see them as icons.
Okay.
I don't really see much difference between painting a movie star or making a kangaroo, really.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. One might come from Hollywood and one might come from
The bush.
the rock around the corner, but there's not really... Yeah, it's still an icon and a really identifiable thing.
If we go back to the earlier ceramics, sort of what precedes those figurative sculptures that we see in shows like the one here at the Melbourne Art Fair, an early one, favourite of mine, would be the Wentworth Falls.
Oh, yes.
What inspired that?
Well, I live in the Blue Mountains, and I'd lived there 15 years ago, and I used to go walking and then I'd come painting. And this time, when I went back there about 11 years ago, I did the same thing. I went walking and I used to come home and make things. Anyway, there's Wentworth Falls is pretty extraordinary things, and it has quite a monumental quality to it that you kind of can make in a 3D way.
Yeah.
And
that other artists have attempted to explore in their painted compositions. Like, who were some of those very early?
Oh, well, Von Gerard's done
Gerard.
there's a cracker of a picture in the NGV of Wentworth Falls. It has a very red tinge. It just glows.
And yours has a bit of a red underglazing, does it?
Ooh,
As well, from memory?
in some parts,
Yeah.
but it's just
It's a beautiful work. I mean, it's...
I did a series of them,
Yeah.
and some I started very loosely painted, and some are a little bit tighter, but those ones have lustre on them, which is... Yeah, anyway, they're very expressive works of Wentworth Falls.
And speaking of lustres, as we come into this current series, I mean, there's new kangaroos. There's a whole... I mean, this isn't the first time you've done them. We have seen them in the through the Archipelago 1 and 2 shows.
Oh, yeah.
But there seems to be a real dominance of sort of gold and other lustres in some of their coats. And I mean, it is the way that the sun reflects from their backs and things like that. Is that what you're seeing and reproducing?
Yes, it's more of a painting concept in that decoration, because it's about a juxtaposition of tone and texture, more so than like a ceramic sort of tradition. So,
Sure.
But I've realised that these things, the surface is very much like the rocks I look at when I am walking around.
The crystals and all these things that reflect the light. Yeah, of course. And there's also, an undeniable Rococo decorative, tactile nature about these works. Again, you've gone for your early influences in Rococo traditions of ceramics have been echoed again.
Well, I just think the Rococo is a master of decoration. It is like, it's whether you like it or not, and a lot of people don't, but I myself do. And a Rococo palace has I try to make things that maybe wouldn't look out of place in an 18th century German palace.
That would be a fantastic exercise, an experiment, I suppose.
Yes.
To take one of these sort of gorgeous velvet plinths and take away some of these beautiful 18th century porcelain wares and just replace them with something from the current show. I think it would
They
be a
do
real
it.
statement as well.
Oh, it's not that original. It's been done a lot.
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
yeah. But I'd love to have a crack at it. But anyway,
And in fact, you're starting to place some of your ceramics, or they've been placed in some pretty significant collections in recent times, like the Art Gallery of Western Australia, I believe.
yeah, they've actually got a very Rococo tea set of the Blue Mountains, and they bought a Black Swan too, which is very Rococo and Nouveau and modern.
Yeah.
That. Yeah.
And so have there been some developments even from your last two shows, through the archipelagos and what we're seeing at the Melbourne Art Fair? Have you had sort of any sort of breakthrough moments or anything of that nature?
Yes, it's the first two. The first show was through the ancestral show. It came from a lot of ancestral work from Southeast Asia, and that was a real juxtaposition between the two-dimensional and the three-dimensional intertwined. But in the last 1.5 shows, I've been looking more at space and time with the ceramics. Yeah.
So very metaphysical dialogue open up.
Yes, it is. Yeah, the tactile quality of it when you're pushing it is it's physical and it becomes metaphysical, and this is much more of a play that I'm having. But I also I really like the directness of the medium too with it. Yeah.
We've spoken about this in the past. Indeed, it's another thing altogether from painting. You're building.
You're closer.
You're
closer. You don't have that between you and that. It's you and that.
Your thumbs are playing it.
Yeah.
Okay,
and you're actually painting. And when you're decorating it, the other thing is you're still not decorating a flat surface. You're decorating a three-dimensional surface. So that's an interesting play too.
And have you obviously, over this course of now over 10 years that you've been making these works, have you developed some, you really honed your skills, I suppose? It certainly appears as though you have. Do you still find there's some unpredictable things that happen in the glazing and firing processes?
Oh yeah. You can never be sure, but you get not bad, but things do fall over, and as I said once about the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I mean, you push it till it's like that, and every now and then it goes like that.
All the way.
So yeah.
Well, I'm sure that there are none of those in the show.
No.
Okay, well, it's been lovely to chat.
Okay, likewise.
I'm sure we'll do